A family sleeps in the shadow of Buckingham Palace, huddled on cold, damp concrete, shivering through the bitter night. Across the ocean, a FED professor roams the streets of Los Angeles, hungry and searching for food. In Paris, the city of light, tents sprawl along the Seine, surrounded by scattered trash. This isn't a story, it's real life. Homelessness is rising fast in wealthy nations, from the United States to France, the United Kingdom to South Korea. How did this happen? Why are millions losing homes in trillion-dollar economies? Stay tuned. What if I told you that one of the world's richest nations has one of the highest homelessness rates on the planet? In the year 2023, homelessness in the United Kingdom hit record-breaking levels. Over 10,510 people were officially documented as homeless, a figure higher than ever before. But the truth is even more alarming. More than 1 in every 200 households lives in unstable conditions, from shelters to temporary housing, and even on the streets. London, the capital of the United Kingdom and a symbol of global wealth, sits at the heart of this crisis. For every 58 people in London, 1 person has no home. This stark number exposes the deep divide between extreme wealth and crushing poverty. The soaring cost of housing is a major force behind the rise in homelessness. Rent prices in London and other major cities have skyrocketed beyond what many can afford. Picture a cafe worker earning around £1,200 a month, while renting a modest flat costs around £22,000 a year. The numbers simply don't add up. Cuts to housing benefits and social support have made the situation worse. For many low-income families, these benefits were a safety net. Without them, eviction is often unavoidable. The very systems designed to help the vulnerable are now failing them. For those who lose their homes, life isn't just uncomfortable, it's dangerous. Many end up in damp, overcrowded temporary shelters where poor sanitation puts them at serious health risk. Nearly 1/3 of homeless individuals in the United Kingdom die due to lack of medical care. Amid this crisis, some groups are working to raise awareness in powerful ways. The Homelessness Reframed exhibition at Saatchi Art Gallery displays art created by or inspired by homeless people. Additionally, Matt and Jess Turtle have opened the world's first museum dedicated to homelessness, giving a voice to stories that are often ignored. If the United Kingdom is struggling with this issue, what about the world's leading superpower? Before we dive into that, take 5 seconds to subscribe and turn on notifications. We've got more fascinating content ahead. Now, let's shift our focus to the United States. The United States is the richest country in the world, yet more than 500,000 Americans sleep without a roof over their heads every night. How can this happen in a nation that spends trillions on technology and defense? The answers might surprise you. In the year 2024, the U.S. Department of Housing and Urban Development reported that around 582,462 people experienced homelessness on a single night. Among them, about 77,140 are chronically homeless, meaning they've gone without stable shelter for over a year. In cities like Los Angeles, New York, and San Francisco, the crisis is impossible to ignore. Entire streets are lined with tents, while makeshift communities sprawl beneath highways and in city parks, transforming urban spaces in plain sight. The cost of housing in America is staggering. The national median rent reached over $2,053 per month in 2024, rising faster than most wages. In San Francisco, renting a modest 1-bedroom apartment averages more than $3,000 a month. Many simply can't afford to keep up. But homelessness isn't just about money. It's also linked to mental health and addiction. A 2024 report from the National Alliance to End Homelessness found that about 1 in 4 unsheltered individuals suffers from severe mental illness, while nearly 2 in 5 struggle with substance abuse. Without access to affordable health care, these issues often go untreated. Living on the streets isn't just tough, it's dangerous. Some find refuge in abandoned buildings or cars, while others sleep under overpasses or in tunnels. In Los Angeles alone, over 1,500 people live beneath the city in underground sewer systems. Yet even in the face of this crisis, some have found alternative ways to survive. Take Slab City, known as Freedom Town, a remote desert community where homeless individuals, veterans, and others live off the grid without basic utilities, but find freedom and a sense of belonging. Consider the story of Dr. Daniel McCune, a former astronomy lecturer at UCLA. Despite earning $70,000 a year, Daniel couldn't afford rent in Los Angeles. "I was forced to live in my car for months," he recalls. "It's ironic. I spent years studying the stars but ended up sleeping under them." His story is a harsh reminder of how close even professionals can be to homelessness. Friends, if you've made it this far, you might realize that having food, water, and a place to call home is a blessing many take for granted. If you agree, share your thoughts in the comments below. From a global superpower to a land of contrasts, let's now journey to Paris, a city of beauty that hides a darker reality. Stay with us. Around 333,000 people in France are homeless, and even the capital isn't immune. In Paris alone, about 16% of residents, roughly 463,000 individuals, live below the poverty line, struggling to survive on an average monthly income of just 747 euros, or around $800. These aren't just numbers, they represent real lives, and the situation keeps getting worse. What's driving this hidden crisis? At the heart of the issue is economic inequality. While tourists admire the luxury shops along the Champs-Élysées, many Parisians can barely afford the basics. The cost of living continues to rise, but wages remain stagnant, pushing countless families to the edge and leaving them vulnerable to homelessness. Housing insecurity also plays a major role. Losing a home is shockingly common in France. A unique challenge here is squatting, where people without shelter occupy empty houses illegally. Surprisingly, French law sometimes offers more protection to squatters than to property owners, creating complex legal battles and few solutions for those displaced. For the homeless, life is brutally tough. Many sleep under bridges, on thin cardboard mats, or along the Saint Martin Canal, surrounded by piles of garbage. Some find shelter in subway stations, huddled together for warmth during the freezing winter nights. In the face of this crisis, nonprofit organizations are making a difference. Mobile shower units and laundry services offer a small sense of dignity to those living on the streets. Charities provide free meals, haircuts, and medical care, while volunteers hand out blankets and basic supplies. It's a lifeline for many, but is it enough? Now it's your turn. Have you seen similar struggles in your own city or country? Share your thoughts in the comments below. But France isn't the only one facing this challenge. Let's head to Asia next, where an economic giant wrestles with its own growing homelessness problem. China's homelessness crisis rarely makes global headlines, but the scale is overwhelming. Around 2.5 million people across the country live without a stable home. In cities like Hong Kong, real estate prices are among the highest in the world. Buying a small apartment can cost more than $1.2 million, while even renting a modest space is unaffordable for many. Homelessness in Hong Kong takes unique forms. One striking example is the rise of MIC refugees. Nearly 1/4 of the city's homeless population spends their nights inside McDonald's restaurants, drawn by air conditioning, safety, and a sense of normal life. Then there are coffin homes, tiny rooms no larger than a parking space. Poorly ventilated and overcrowded, these cramped units can cost up to $500 a month. For many, it's a desperate choice between the streets and a place that barely qualifies as shelter. To survive, some homeless individuals in China have turned to creative strategies. Some live stream from under bridges, singing or sharing their daily struggles to receive small donations from online viewers. Others hold signs asking for help, not just for food but for unexpected things like travel expenses. Meet Mr. Nguyen Van Son. Once a construction worker in Hong Kong, he lost his job after an injury. Unable to pay rent, he now lives under a pedestrian bridge in Sham Shui Po. "The city keeps getting richer," he says, "but people like me are forgotten." Then there's Dao Duong, a former academic who earned a PhD from a top university. Despite his education, he's spent the past 14 years homeless, battling mental health issues and unable to reconnect with his family. Success felt so close, he reflects, but everything slipped away. Finally, meet Mrs. Ivy, an elderly woman who refuses to live in a coffin home. "I'd rather sleep in the park than feel trapped in a box," she says. Every night, she guards her few belongings closely, keeping her phone and wallet within reach. For Ivy, the streets offer more freedom than the confinement of unsafe, cramped housing. South Korea. a nation known for its cutting-edge technology, vibrant K-pop scene, and rapid economic growth. But beneath this polished image lies an unexpected struggle. With around 11,000 homeless individuals in a population of over 51 million, how does such a wealthy modern society leave so many behind? For a country celebrated for its progress, the presence of thousands living without stable shelter exposes the cracks in its urban and social fabric. One major issue is the soaring cost of housing. Real estate prices in South Korea, especially in Seoul, have skyrocketed, pushing affordable homes far out of reach. The average apartment in Seoul costs more than $1 million, making homeownership nearly impossible for low-income earners. Another factor is alcohol abuse. South Korea has one of the highest rates of alcohol consumption in the world. Many homeless individuals spend much of their limited income on alcohol, deepening their struggles and trapping them in poverty. South Korean winters are harsh and unforgiving. Temperatures regularly fall below freezing, and the icy ground makes sleeping outside life-threatening. Some seek warmth from underground heating vents near subway stations, but many have no escape from the bitter cold. Just 20 minutes from Gangnam, one of Seoul's wealthiest neighborhoods, lies Goryeo slum. Here, fragile homes built from scrap materials barely withstand the elements. During winter, makeshift coal fires meant for warmth often cause devastating house fires. In a desperate search for security, some women, especially Vietnamese immigrants, enter sham marriages. Brokers promise a path out of homelessness in exchange for money or favors, but these arrangements often lead to exploitation and deeper hardship. Despite these struggles, organizations like Dream City Center and Myeongdong Church offer hope. Dream City Center provides housing, medical checkups, laundry services, and haircuts to hundreds each day. Meanwhile, Myeongdong Church serves more than 800 free meals every week, supporting the homeless and elderly. Then there's Hyun's story, a tale of quiet resilience. After facing bullying in a homeless women's shelter, she found refuge under Yongeung Bridge. For 5 years, she lived in a small tent, surviving on donations from strangers. "I never thought my life would turn out like this," she says, "but at least here I have some control." What would you do if the very roof over your head became unaffordable? Homelessness in Canada affects around 235,000 people each year, with more than 35,000 individuals experiencing homelessness on any given night. While cities like Toronto and Vancouver thrive as economic powerhouses, they also face the harshest impact of this crisis. In Toronto alone, over 10,000 people rely on emergency shelters annually, with many more left without any form of shelter. Canada's real estate market ranks among the least affordable in the world. In cities like Vancouver and Toronto, property prices have surged by more than 300% over the past 2 decades. Renting isn't much easier. By 2024, the average rent for a one-bedroom apartment in Toronto surpassed $2,500 per month. For minimum wage workers, these costs are simply out of reach. Despite the rising demand, Canada's public housing supply hasn't kept pace. Since the 1990s, government funding for social housing has steadily declined, leaving low-income families on waiting lists that stretch for years. This shortage forces many into unsafe, overcrowded, or temporary living conditions. Canada's brutal winters make homelessness even more dangerous. Temperatures often drop below -20 degrees Celsius, turning the outdoors into a life-threatening environment. Emergency shelters fill up quickly, leaving many with no option but to brave the deadly cold. In response, both government programs and nonprofit organizations have stepped in. The federal government's National Housing Strategy aims to create 100,000 affordable housing units by the year 2030. Meanwhile, organizations like Raising the Roof offer emergency shelters, transitional housing, and job training to help people regain their independence. While these efforts are important, critics argue they don't fully address the root causes of homelessness in Canada. In the winter, you can't just survive, you have to fight to stay alive, says David, a former construction worker who has lived in a Toronto shelter for 3 years. You can't sleep because you're too cold, and you can't leave because there's nowhere else to go. Canada's homelessness crisis reveals the deep impact of housing inequality and systemic barriers. But what about other parts of the world? From the frozen streets of Canada, let's journey south to explore how Australia faces its own unique homelessness challenges. Homelessness in Australia has reached alarming levels. According to recent reports, over 116,000 people go without stable housing each night. This includes families living in cars, individuals packed into overcrowded shelters, and entire communities surviving in urban tent cities. Indigenous Australians are disproportionately affected, accounting for nearly 20% of the homeless population, despite representing only around 3% of the country's total population. This stark contrast raises urgent questions about deep-rooted systemic inequalities. Australia's real estate market ranks among the most expensive in the world. In cities like Sydney and Melbourne, median house prices exceed $1 million, and rental costs continue to skyrocket. For low-income families and individuals, affording even a small apartment has become nearly impossible. Government investment in public housing has stagnated for decades. With a shortage of around 400,000 affordable units, waiting lists for social housing can stretch on for years. This chronic underinvestment has left many vulnerable people with nowhere to turn. Indigenous Australians face unique and devastating challenges. Generations of systemic inequality in education, employment, and healthcare have led to higher rates of homelessness. For many, finding stable housing is an uphill battle, made harder by racial discrimination and limited access to support services. In cities like Sydney and Melbourne, homelessness is impossible to ignore. Tent cities have become a harsh reality of the urban landscape, while overcrowded shelters struggle to meet the growing demand. For countless people, the streets are the only option. Efforts to address homelessness in Australia involve both government programs and nonprofit organizations. The National Housing and Homelessness Agreement allocates around $1.5 billion annually to fund emergency shelters and develop affordable housing. Nonprofits like Mission Australia and the Salvation Army provide shelters, counseling, and job training to help people rebuild their lives. While these efforts are valuable, experts argue that solving the crisis requires a larger, long-term investment in permanent housing solutions to break the cycle of homelessness. Now, as we leave Australia behind, what about its neighbor, New Zealand, where one of the highest per capita homelessness rates tells a different story? Stay with us to find out. In New Zealand, around 1% of the population, nearly 50,000 people, live in conditions of severe housing deprivation. This includes not only those sleeping rough, but also families squeezed into overcrowded homes, garages, and temporary shelters. For a country with just over 5 million residents, this is a staggering statistic. The sharp rise in house prices over the past 2 decades has left many New Zealanders struggling. As of the year 2024, the median house price in Auckland sits at over $1 million, while wages have failed to keep pace. For low-input earners, the dream of homeownership feels completely out of reach. While urban homelessness is highly visible in cities like Auckland and Wellington, rural areas face hidden challenges. Hidden homelessness, where families live in garages, overcrowded homes, or poorly insulated sheds, is widespread but often goes unnoticed. In New Zealand's cities, the sight of homelessness is becoming harder to ignore. Tents and makeshift shelters have appeared in public parks and along busy streets, making the crisis visible to all who pass by. To address this growing problem, the New Zealand government has launched programs like Kainga Ora, aiming to build tens of thousands of public housing units over the next decade. Emergency shelters and transitional housing options are expanding, but critics argue these efforts are falling short of the growing demand. "We've been on the waiting list for 3 years," says Sarah, a mother of 2 who now lives in a friend's garage. "It's hard to stay hopeful when you don't even have a place to call home." "I see people walking by looking at us like we're invisible," says Michael, who has been sleeping in a tent in Auckland for over a year. "It's like we don't exist." Sarah's journey into hidden homelessness began after her landlord sold the property she was renting. Unable to find an affordable place, she and her 2 children moved into a friend's garage. "It's cramped, and there's no heating," she says, "but it's better than being out in the cold." Michael, once a construction worker, became homeless after a work injury left him unable to pay rent. Now he lives in a tent in a public park, relying on food donations and public showers. "I want to work again," he says, "but without an address, it's impossible to get hired." As we wrap up our exploration of the Pacific, let's shift our focus to Germany, a country known for its strong social safety net, yet still facing a growing homelessness crisis. As of the year 2024, around 650,000 people in Germany are experiencing homelessness. This includes those sleeping rough on the streets as well as individuals living in temporary shelters or unstable accommodations. Germany's housing crisis is most visible in its bustling urban centers, where skyrocketing rents and housing shortages have reached critical levels. The German housing market is under intense pressure, especially in cities like Berlin, Munich, and Hamburg. Rent increases, some as high as 40% over the past decade, have far outpaced wage growth, forcing many people to choose between paying for food, utilities, or a place to live. The arrival of large numbers of refugees and migrants has added to the strain. While Germany's open-door policy has been praised for its humanitarian approach, it has also led to overcrowded shelters and fierce competition for affordable housing. Germany's federal structure means that homelessness policies differ widely across its 16 states. This creates an uneven landscape where some regions offer well-funded support systems, while others struggle to meet even the most basic needs. In response to the growing crisis, the German government has pledged to build 400,000 new housing units each year, with a significant portion designated as affordable housing. While this initiative holds promise, critics argue that progress is too slow to keep pace with the rising demand. "I worked my whole life," says Klaus, a 65-year-old retired factory worker. "But after my rent went up, my pension wasn't enough. Now I'm here, in a shelter, wondering what went wrong." Klaus spent over 40 years working in a factory near Berlin. When he retired, he believed his pension would be enough for a modest life, but a sudden rent hike left him unable to afford his home. "I never thought I'd be homeless," he says quietly. "Now, I'm just trying to get through each day." "We came here hoping for a better life," shares Amina, a refugee mother of 3 living in temporary housing, "but the wait for permanent housing feels endless." Germany's homelessness crisis reveals the challenges even wealthy, developed nations face in balancing economic growth with social responsibility. As we've traveled across continents, we've seen how homelessness touches every corner of the world. Now, let's reflect on what we've discovered and consider the path forward. If you enjoyed today's video, please hit the like button and don't forget to subscribe to the channel. Your support means a lot to us. Click on the video that appears on your screen right now. I'm sure you'll love this content. Comment below about the next country you want to see featured on our channel. Thank you so much for watching, and see you in the next video. Thanks for joining us. Leave a comment, give it a like, and don't forget to subscribe for more interesting videos. See you in the next video.